Two women broke the rules of the palace. One was granted the power to ask for whatever she wants, the other lost her crown and was sent away. Queen Esther understood something most women never learn. Power is not about force. It's something completely different from what you know. Esther remains one of the most psychologically brilliant women in history. She didn't have any army, she didn't have any political power. All she had was influence. Influence that moved in silence but ran deep. This is still being used by most powerful women today to get whatever they want. And that power is simply understanding how people think. According to the Act of Seduction by Robert Greene, the key to seduction is to understand the psychology of the other person. And also, in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it teaches that influence isn't about force. It's about understanding how the other person feels about themselves. Understanding this would help you get whatever you want in any room. There were four strategies that Esther used, and I'll be breaking them down in this video. Also, I'll talk about their psychological effects. There's a kind of subtle power that exists, but is rare. The power of strategic concealment. We live in an age of oversharing, Instagram stories, public diaries, 24 hours news circles, tweet about our feelings, opinions about politics, about religion, and our intentions. Meanwhile, there's a different form of influence. This one thrives not on exposure, but on restraint. Identity withholding is not deception. It's a psychological leverage. It's choosing what to show, what to hide, and when it's best to reveal. Many historical figures mastered these tactics, but only a few used it deliberately, like Esther. Esther lived in the Persian Empire during the reign of King Xerxes. She rose from obscurity to queen. But there was something she didn't reveal: her identity, her Jewish identity. It was a calculated decision between herself and her older cousin Mordecai. And it wasn't because of shame, it wasn't because they were afraid, because Mordecai was quite a confrontational man. It was really about timing over transparency. When you reveal something too soon, it makes you vulnerable in a way that removes power from your hand to the other person's. Esther's choice wasn't merely omission. She waited until the moment when her revelation would have maximum impact. We can also look at the Chinese Wu Zetian, another historical woman who mastered strategic withholding. This was the only woman in Chinese history to take the throne in her name. Wu masked her ambition. Her contemporaries saw compliance. But beneath that facade was a strategic mind, building alliances, gaining influence. She let her ambition out slowly. First, she became consort, up until she ultimately became sovereign. Just like Queen Esther, Wu withheld her ambition until she had loyalty, authority, and she was sure that her opposition was weak. The psychology behind identity withholding. 1. It creates underestimation. When others underestimate you, they become less careful around you because of the assumption that they can predict you and there's not so much to you. So what it does is that it gives you the upper hand because they would not see you coming. 2. It amplifies impact. When you reveal something too early, it makes it seem ordinary or less substantial. But when it's revealed at the right time, it becomes an advantage. One book that explains how strategic concealment is power is The Act of Strategic Silence by Harriet. This book argues that what you don't say can be more powerful than what you do. So silence and controlled disclosure functions as leverage in negotiation, in power dynamics, in leadership. See, there's real strength in restraint. This is also a strategy Beyoncé uses. She strategically shares personal information when she wants to use it to her advantage. She also uses controlled personal narrative. Have you ever wondered why, despite the little glimpses of her personal life, and sometimes people expect her to take certain actions, but she hardly ever does? That's intentional. Using controlled information to her benefit. Identity or information withholding does not mean keeping it secret. It just simply means waiting for the perfect opportunity to reveal the information. Emotional goodwill is a powerful human dynamic. It is creating shared emotional connection, and this reduces any threat that the other party could feel, and then it increases openness. Psychology refers to this as positive relational framing. I'll go on to explain the psychological aspect later, but first, let's look at how Esther used this to her advantage. Esther didn't rush in with her request to save her people. She spent time creating positive experience with the king, and as it was stated here, if it pleases the king, let the king together with Haman come to a banquet which I have prepared for him. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared, and the king asked her what her petition was. Esther was so smart. She knew that another invite, another positive shared experience helps to solidify the work that she had already put in place. So she asked the king if he could come again. His acceptance of the second invite already shows that emotional goodwill was taking effect. The first invite was relaxed, pleasant, while the second invite reinforced the positive memory and lowered psychological defenses. She made the king associate her with enjoyment, with comfort, with admiration and gratitude before she brought serious stakes into the conversation. There's a principle called the reciprocity principle. It talks about people wanting to respond in kind to kindness. Esther did not confront the king with her agenda at first meeting. She built goodwill, then she made her request, maximizing her chances of success by shaping emotional context first. This is why emotional goodwill works. 1. Emotional memory shaped decision making because humans are emotional first before they are rational. So decisions are guided by how we feel about someone in the moment. 2. Positive shared experience reduces uncertainty. When you make someone feel good with you, the brain associates that with trust. 3. Attitude change is easier when there is presence of positive experience. Persuasion is more effective when the other person's mood is positive because you're not fighting spikes in adrenaline or any form of suspicion. 4. Social bonding improves cooperation. Experiences that triggers warmth, like a nice time spent together or a nice meal shared together, subconsciously it bonds you with the other person. This is the same reason why businesses are often sealed over dinner. To sum this all up in a sentence, people give to those they like. This is one of the strategies behind what many interviewers do to their guests. They first of all create that emotional connection to get them to open up. First, they make you feel comfortable, and then they create this positive emotional environment, and then their guests begin to feel very relaxed, and naturally they open up, and they even answer deeper questions that they normally wouldn't. People would forget what you say, but they would never forget how you make them feel. Victories are rarely born from luck. They are the result of alignment. Quiet, invisible, but calculated. The strategy Esther mastered that very few people talk about, very few narrative actually pay attention to, is strategic alignment. And it's not just making friends with the right people. It's positioning yourself in systems where your goals naturally aligns with the interest of those who make it happen. It's knowing who matters, understanding what those people want, and aligning your strength to meet their wants at the right time. The palace was layered with gatekeepers, influencers, important position of power, people in such position, and one of the position is the king's custodian of women. Haggai was a gatekeeper. Many people also forget this part. A gatekeeper determines who gets access. Haggai was the official in charge of the royal harem, the man who was in control of things like the makeup, the grooming, scheduling of audience, daily routine, presentation, access to the king's attention. This means that he knew what the king liked, and this put him in a position of influence. If Haggai disliked Esther, she might not have gotten a fair audience with the king. So Haggai's influence played a huge role. But let's see, what did Esther do? Esther aligned her interest with Haggai. We weren't told the specific of what made her his favorite, but based on what we can see is that Esther had a good rapport with him and others around her. She behaved like somebody who was serious about becoming the queen, and she respected the fact that he knew better than she did when it came to matters of the king's preference, and she depended heavily on his advice. We were told that Esther received special treatment because Haggai knows the king's taste. He must have instructed the maids or those attached to Esther to use specific type of oil and treatment. He put her in one of the best places in the palace. This was helpful mentally because she was already being treated better than others, so naturally it will have a positive impact on her. Esther's cousin used this strategy. He was one who made sure to use his connection to get Esther as far as he could. I also believe that Esther was not the only beautiful woman with a beautiful figure amongst those women. It was also because she was strategically aligned with the man who was in charge of the king's women affairs, and that was a huge advantage. We can clearly see this with the wives and partners of successful men today, men who hold powerful positions. These women were into careers or into things that aligned with this men's mission, so it gave them an advantage over others. From the first ladies to those who married into royalties, to people who married the brain box, the brilliant guys, those who married the freedom fighters, and famous people like that, the women who married these powerful men are rarely random. They position themselves where power circulates and they become valuable within those spaces. I want us to look at what psychology says about this. The first one is the propinquity effect. People form relationship with those they repeatedly encounter in meaningful settings. 2. Similarity attraction theory. We are drawn to people who reflect our values, ambitions, and identity. 3. Role theory. Individuals achieve success when they fit expected roles within a system. You see, Esther did not disrupt the system. She worked within it to expand her role. 4. Cognitive readiness. People respond positively to individuals who demonstrate competence within the rules of the environment. So you see, Esther did not just rely on her uncle's connection. She made sure to fulfill expectations exceptionally. So if you want to strategically align yourself for anything, increase your chances of being around that thing and make sure to become one who belongs there and not just belong there or be a random person, but one who is of true value. When Esther got access to the king, Xerxes, she had the perfect opportunity to speak. The king literally said, "What is your request? Even up to half of my kingdom, it will be given to you." Most people would blot it out. She didn't. Instead, she invited him to a banquet with one of his best men. That is psychological control. Making a person anticipate, if done right, can result in a positive answer. There's a psychological principle behind this. It's called emotional peak timing. This is a concept in psychology where people are most persuadable at emotional peaks. When Esther reviewed her request and also her identity, the king was emotionally softened. Haman, which is her problem, her challenge, was present. The stakes were clear. It was just the perfect time. In relationship, don't make emotional demands during conflict. Wait until connection is high. Just like in business, the best time to pitch is when value has been experienced. If you really are serious about learning the psychology behind getting what you want, I recommend that you need to watch the video I did on the psychology of getting what you want. The link is in the description box. I discuss very important strategies used by famous women and still being used by women who are in power or married to men in power. Check the description box. Make sure you subscribe, share, and make sure you like the video if you have learned anything from it. And let me see in the comment section, which other strategy do you think that I did not discuss, but you know it was one of the strategies that Esther used in getting to the throne, or Esther used to get what she wants from the king? I'll be reading your comments.